Okay, good afternoon all. So welcome to Insights Psir classes. So this is the first batch what we are starting for this year. So myself, my name is Nikhil and I am the political science faculty at Insights. I also teach Indian polity as well as international relations. So in today's class, the first few classes we have given access to everybody. So to decide on the quality of the classes here. So in today's class we will be going through the PSR syllabus decode. Okay. So what is the agenda of today's class is that to understand what is there in political science and how to prepare on these part of the syllabus and what are the sources one can refer in that regard. So as all of you know, there are two papers in the option subject, that is paper 1 and paper 2. And in both the papers there are two parts, part A and part B. Here also there is part A and part B. So in general, not only with respect to political science, if you take any optional subject, what is the main difference you observe in part A and part B? In general, especially the social science subjects, political science, PubAt, sociology, what is one thing you will observe here in part A and part B? Part A will be usually theoretical, the part will be usually the applied part of it. Okay. So if you look at both papers in political science, in paper 1 also, if you take part A, you mainly have broadly, then I will go in detail, you have the Western political thought, okay, then you have the Indian political thought, then you have the political theories, okay. And part B, if you take, you have the Indian national movement, one aspect of it, then you have the Indian constitution, and third part you have the Indian political system. Broadly that covers political parties, pressure groups, etc. So in part A, first we will take up part A, try to understand what is there and how we have to approach and how we will be going through in classes in that regard. So as I told, part A is a bit theoretical. So what do you mean by a theory? In general, you would have not only political science theory, I think you have read geography, you would have read a few theories, right? What do you mean by a theory? Anything, what is a theory? So what is any theory you have come across? What you have read till now? Any basic theory, not only to political science, any subject. Darwin's theory is there. So what did Darwin theory is? Survival of the fittest. Now in a theory, basically it's a proposition put forward by one scholar trying to give scientific explanation to it. But theory can also have that few people might disagree with his explanation. Okay, it's not that every theory is 100% foolproof. So similarly, you here when we say political theories in that regard, different scholars would have given different ideas. And what we are looking here to study that particular idea, try to analyze that particular idea and try to find to what extent what he is saying is applicable in today's time. Or similarly, there are certain criticism or drawbacks with certain ideas. So when we say a theory in that regard, here we are looking into different ideas presented by different scholars. But now they have mentioned in the syllabus of what? Western political thought. So in Western political thought, first we need to understand the Greek political thought. Okay. So because you have three important scholars who will come here. One is Socrates, though he is not there in your syllabus, it is not given in the syllabus, but to understand ideas of Plato in that regard, because Plato was deeply influenced by his guru Socrates. Okay, so you need to know a bit about Socrates. Socrates has told about many other things. We won't be focusing on that. We will be only focusing on the part that what is Socrates' influence on Plato and how it shaped the ideas of Plato and what are the different ideas provided by Plato. Then is the scholar which is there in your syllabus, Plato and his ideas. Again, here only limiting to his political ideas. Again, Plato has spoken about many things, but our main focus is on what? Studying his political ideas. So he has written three important works. one is called as the Republic, the Laws and the Statesman in that regard. Main will learn what he has written in these books and how these ideas are relevant to present day times. Similarly, I told, when somebody has given an idea, they can be also critics to it. Okay, you might not agree that this idea is applicable in today's time, or you might say that this idea was given in a particular historical context which might not be applicable in present social conscious. That is what we say critical evaluation. Okay, why this point is important? Now you take any political science question or any subject, okay, any optional. If you see the question paper, the questions usually you don't find what is the theory saying. Okay, nobody is going to ask you what is philosopher king. Okay, if you have gone through the previous year question papers, you will never find a question saying that what is philosopher king. They won't ask such questions. The question will be more about what? Discuss, comment, critically analyze, examine. So when you see these are the question tags attached to theory. So they might ask critically examine Plato's ideas of philosopher king. Obviously first you have to know what is the idea of philosopher king even before you analyze that. But in exam, I am telling, once your preparation start, once we go through Plato, we will be also looking at that idea from different perspectives. Now Plato has given this idea. Plato is criticized by his own student. Aristotle. Okay, there are many ideas of Plato which Aristotle has criticized. So when we start the study of Western political thought, understanding of Greek political thought is very important, because as there is a saying, the whole European political thought is nothing but footnotes of Plato and Aristotle. Means all the theories what we say, democracy, liberty, equality, justice, everything has been spoken by Plato and Aristotle. Now what other scholars they have done is that they have developed on these ideas. So our preparation will always start with understanding the Greek political thought. Based on Greek political thought, then we will be going into the other scholars. Now again here, what we will be studying here in this part? One, sir, should I know the complete history, where he was born? Briefly we will know, but don't worry about the historical aspect. Where was he born? Who was his father? Who was his mother? Not required. The main focus will be on understanding ideas. To give you one summary, okay, if you take Plato in that regard, I'll just give a summary. It's not that the whole chapter, because we'll start with Plato tomorrow. See, Plato was born in a city-state called as Athens, okay, because at that point of time there was nothing called as nation, or the idea of nation had not developed. They were all city-states. Today Greece is a country. Within Greece you have different cities. You have Athens, you have Sparta, etc. At that time Athens was a city-state. And what we see, democracy is not something new. Democracy has existed since times of Plato. There was a democratic government in where? In Athens. And Plato is actually deeply influenced by whom? Socrates. He considered him as the most intelligent man, because Socrates has very deep understanding of the world, of the reality. Now in a fast forward thing, Socrates was put to death. He was sentenced to death by the same elected representative of the Athens. He was made to consume hemlock poison, because they were not ready to accept the ideas given by Socrates, and they felt that these ideas are too radical, and these ideas are promoting the youth to go against the state. And he consumed hemlock and he died. This had deep impact on Plato. So Plato was very unhappy about it, death of his master. He started to question, and why things are like this. So his analysis goes into the point saying that the problem lies in our rulers, that whom we have elected as rulers, there the fault lies. Why? He'll again go into the question. He says that to rule, he says that you need to have knowledge. Okay. So the Socrates also was the same thing. He also believed that knowledge is very much important. Knowledge is an virtue. It's an important quality an individual should have. You can see a lot of similarities here with also the Indian political thought also. For example, you have Shankaracharya, who has given the concept of Maya. Okay, means what you see, that is not the reality. A rope, Okay, see, there are different ways you can sense knowledge. What you see, what you touch. Okay, these are all different ways their knowledge can be built. So a rope can also look in the shape of a snake. Okay, you have to touch and see whether it is a rope or a snake. So the physical world, what you live in, it's just not permanent. Okay, to understand reality, you need something called as inner knowledge. Okay, like what we say in the third eye that Lord Shiva had. So you need to have that spiritual knowledge to understand how the world works. That is what Plato gets into the idea that, there is a famous saying that reality is the shadow of ideas. Okay, it is not the reality what you see, what you witness. To understand that, you need deep knowledge. That he believed Socrates had. But what is the problem with people in Athens? They didn't have that knowledge. When you don't have that kind of knowledge, so your perception is whatever you see, that you think is the reality. So he's trying to correlate with what? People are deeply attracted by material things, power, money, etc. So he says that this was a problem in Athens, that those who were ruling, they were highly corrupt. Okay, they didn't know the art of ruling. Similarly, Socrates has raised this question. He asked the question, imagine you are going in a ship. Do you want the ship to be driven by somebody who is an expert in driving the ship, or you want some, XYZ, anybody can drive the ship? The answer will be you need some kind of expert. So he says that state is also like a ship. The state has to be led by a person who has these qualities in that regard. Okay. So what this Plato says that why there was lack of what we can say development, large scale corruption of ruler he wants. That is the idea called as philosopher king. Now if you read different ideas given by Plato, there are different theories. Theory of education or knowledge, what we can say. He builds an education system. Then there is something called as communism of wives and property. Then if you read all these theories, if you connect all these theories, it's a process about choosing the next ruler who is the most educated person in the city-state of Athens. So he designs an education system where he says that everybody has to go to the same school, and there will be 3 or 4 examinations in between. You have to qualify in each exam to be eligible to be, get higher studies. So at the end of the education system, those who are remaining, in them, one person will be eligible to become the philosopher king. I have not gone into the details. We will get into the details tomorrow. This is a short summary in that regard. And such a person, what he says, will be chosen as the philosopher king. Now the doubt will come to your mind is that, sir, even if there are 10 people, then how you will choose one? The point what Plato says is that for these people who have crossed this tests in that regard, they have the true knowledge. They are not behind material wealth. They don't see power as something which is positive, that they want to remain in power and rule. So they don't have the what you can say aspirations to grab power and to become rulers. But you have to convince one among the 10 that you have to sacrifice what you can say your career for the sake of people, and such a person will go on to become the philosopher king. But there is idea of philosopher queen also. He does not discriminate between men and women. He will tell even a woman is eligible to become the ruler. But there are certain conditions. One, as I told, deeply educated, you should cross his education system in the tests what you have. Second one, you cannot marry. You cannot marry, you cannot have a family of your own. Third one, you cannot own private property. There is no private ownership. That how he will decide? He will divide the whole society into 3 classes. Okay, the ruling class, the guardian class, and what we can say, the third category is the normal class, means people who can own family, who can run business. Ruling class will run the administration of the state. Guardian class will, the soldier class they will do. So how do we derive which person belongs to which class? It is through his education system we will determine. So that will go into later, that how does he do the test. Now he says that this philosopher king who is chosen, he should be given complete power. He is above the constitution. Nobody has to question him. Why nobody has to question him? Because he is very well educated. He knows what is the decision he is going to taking. He is always going to take decision according to reason. He will give an explanation, a rational person. But this is where many critics will come. They start questioning. Okay, it's a good idea. Nobody is telling it is wrong. Even today, if you see what Plato has told is true. If you take democracies across the world, same problem is there. For example, if you take in India, as we say now, people do not cast their vote, but they vote their caste. You have instances where people vote on identity rather than developmental politics. Not wrong. Plato had told this. This is one of the drawbacks of democracy. In democracy, you will get government by amateurs, not government by experts. But what many say is that he identified it correctly. The symptoms perfect, but the prescription what he gave, they say that is not perfect. And there is one person called as Karl Popper. He accuses Plato to be the first fascist. Because why? He is giving complete power in hands of one person on the aspect of what that he is completely knowledgeable. So what they question is that what is the guarantee? He might be knowledgeable. At least 1% in that person, end of the day is a human being, he will have passions, he can take decisions in a haste. So that is why they criticize him what as being a fascist. And interestingly what Karl Popper says that if you look at Plato and if you look at the qualities what he says the philosopher king has, they match. Plato was not married. Okay, Plato was not married. Plato was not interested in having properties and all. Plato was a philosopher, is deeply educated. So that is what Popper says, that it is Plato's attempt to become a king. Philosopher, it was his attempt. See, whether Athens have philosophy or no, this is an idea presented by Plato. It's not that it was implemented. Okay, this was an idea presented by Plato at that point of time. So why we need to read Western political thought is tomorrow when we read political theory, you have a chapter called as democracy. There you need to interconnect what Plato said. You get a point? See what many people think, I don't know, that is my experience with students. They believe that once we come to a class, take a class, read one notes in that regard, we'll end up getting 300. If you believe that, you are making a fool out of yourself. I can't make you get 300. I can't make somebody get 300. We can show you the path. But it also requires for you to do a lot of thinking. That's why in our class, we won't dictate notes for political science. Notes will be uploaded on the portal, the printed notes. But in class, when we discuss, it should be an interactive class. Okay, you can interact, you can tell, okay, this idea might seem to be extreme. So you will also have to learn the art of interlinking. So that is why we say some people will say that they read Plato now, they'll say we'll start writing answer the next day itself. Okay, you read Plato today and you start, I'll write answer next day. Don't try to do that. At least wait till you complete the 9 scholars. Okay, what are the 9 scholars we are studying as part of Western political thought, which is mentioned in the syllabus? Plato, Aristotle, then Machiavelli, then you have Locke, Hobbes, J.S. Mill, then you have Karl Marx, then you have Gramsci, and finally Hannah Arendt. So among the 9 thinkers, the one woman thinker is Hannah Arendt in that regard. So now you read Plato. Okay, let us think you attempt to write an answer, but you have not read about Marx, you have not read about J.S. Mill. Now your analysis of Plato is very limited, because once you read Aristotle, once you read Hobbes in that regard, now your analysis will deepen in that regard. So there are many things what Plato has told has been developed by further scholars. There are many things what Plato has told has been criticized by the other scholars. So that is why we say once you read the thinkers, then you start writing the answer, because that will widen your sphere of analytical abilities. Okay. But in class, we will be also doing is that after every scholar, I will take up few questions. In class only, we will try to discuss the answer, and in class only, we will make you to write the answers also. Okay. The reason is simple. See, weekly tests, if given, it will be meaningless. What will happen is that some people will write for few days, some people don't write for few days, and the laziness will creep in over a period of time. We will also have weekly tests, but before that we will also be writing in class itself. Okay, so few questions I will only dictate the answer, that this is how you have to write the answer. But as you go, we will be, at least our goal should be by the time we complete the classes, we should have at least answered 80% of the PYQs. Okay, by the time you complete the classes, along with the classes, you should have written the PYQs. I think Vinay sir also told, I think in optional, yesterday there was a session, right? that you at least have 80 to 100 answers which are pre-prepared beforehand. Because in optional, one advantage is that unlike your GS paper, the question keeps repeating. Take this Western political thought and you just go check from 2011 to last year, 2022. You will find the same questions which are been asked in different ways, the same base themes. Very rarely they'll ask one or two questions which are pretty different. Okay. So here is an advantage is that if you go with pre-prepared preparation, but my point is that don't try to write the same thing. So even in class notes, what you would have given, you try to replace this with your own examples. Or let us think you're reading newspaper. In newspaper also seeing one advantage of political science is that most of the Hindu editorial page, Indian Express editorial page are highly relevant to political science. Okay, every day one or two people are writing, especially like people like Pratap Bhanu Mehta, Srinath Raghavan in that regard. So these are all related to political science. But you have to see whether the topic what they've written is related to which topic. So you will find a quote to democracy in that regard. You can use it in your answer. Keep it as your asset. Don't try to share it with anybody else. It is your asset. Think from an examiner's point of view. So let us think there is a question on Plato and in class you would have given a notes. Now all of you will read the same notes. You go write the same answer. Obviously the evaluator will know, right? These are all watched rote learning parrots reproducing the same thing which is there. When UPSC will award you more marks is that when you bring something which is unique. I am not telling further don't try to write differently. Write the common elements. But replace one or two quotes which is different. Try to replace one or two examples which are different. There you have to be street smart. Again important. So our preparation will be reading with what? Understanding each of the scholar. This is one example I told Plato in a summary that what mainly Plato's ideas is about. So we will be also looking into Plato from different angles. Is Plato the first feminist? Okay, because he spoke about women can also become rulers. We have to analyze and see whether he is the first feminist. Karl Popper criticized Plato as what? He is the first fascist. Fascism is an ideology which was related to Hitler and Mussolini. Mainly the idea is behind what? The idea is behind centralization of power, all the power located in hands of one person in that regard. Because Plato also spoke about all the power should be given in the hands of philosopher king. So we have to analyze and see, can we compare Plato to Hitler? Is Plato the first Hitler? There are either side of the argument. Some would disagree. You are saying you are comparing the uncomparables. Okay, the intention behind Hitler was different, intention behind Plato was different. Get your point? And then we will also look at what is the relevance of Plato's ideas in today's time. So why do we read history? Or why do we read these thinkers? Why it is there in the syllabus? In simple logic also I think, why one should read Plato? What is the use? That is what we say, to understand today's problem, we have to know the past well. Because there is many solutions given in the past which can be explored to be implemented better. So that is what we are saying, that there is a famous saying, if you don't know history, you will never be able to create history. So knowing history is very well. But here we are not looking from a historical angle, we are looking from these ideas they were presented. The second important point we have to keep in mind is that there is a saying that every political thinker is a child of his times. I said, well, why we have to know about their life briefly, not in detail. Let us think your idea is developed. An idea is not developed in vacuum. Overnight you don't develop an idea. Your ideas are shaped by a lot of factors surrounding you. The society what you belong to, the religion what you are born into, the family what you are born into, your economic situation in that regard. Right? So different people at different parts of time, they have given certain ideas. So we have to also understand under what context they gave that idea. Okay, are these ideas relevant even in present times? Okay, maybe Plato gave an idea. Let us take philosopher King. He was working in what? City-states. Population was small, cities were small. But today we are living in an era of nation-states. Bigger populations in that regard. So we have to see whether his ideas can be applicable today or not. Similarly, like each one of them, we will be also studying about Aristotle. Plato is considered as the father of political philosophy. Aristotle is considered the father of political science. Okay, like each one of them we will be looking into what is the ideas presented by them. And as I said, we are not just reading about their ideas, we also have to analyze. The second thing what we will be doing is that we will be also trying to interlink What is interlinking? Some ideas given by Plato might have influenced Hannah Arendt. Some ideas given by Plato might be criticized by Marx in that regard. That is the key. If you want to score well, you have to do a lot of interlinking. If you are very good in interlinking, scoring marks is easier here. Okay. Because I used to score consistently when in PSR paper 1. So once I scored 149, once I scored 146 or something. And it was not that I read a lot. Okay, same, one common notes, do revisions, but interlink. Okay, try to look at the issue from different lens point of view. So that's what I'm telling you. You have to develop your thinking abilities. You don't just try to by heart. Again, what? Now, what is by hearting is that now if they ask comment on Plato's philosopher king, some students what they will do, they'll just write about who is the philosopher king, etc. They are not asking you what is Plato's philosopher king. The question is what? Comment on it. Comment means what? You have to bring your analysis. What do you think? There you have to tell, okay, is this idea relevant today? Okay, or this idea is not relevant today. You, in the sense, you cannot tell, I think he is not relevant. No. Try to make use of other scholars who have criticized Plato. Okay, like Plato told democracy is the worst form of government. For Plato. But if you go ahead of time and if you listen to what Winston Churchill, he said, he told democracy might be the worst form of government, but it is the best until you have an alternative. Yeah, democracy is not perfect. It has its own set of problems. But what is the alternative? As of today, there has been no better alternative to democracy. And Churchill agrees that, yeah, democracy has its own set of, drawbacks which are there. But many will disagree what Plato gave as an alternative, that philosopher king. They say, no, this might lead to, dictatorship. This might lead to, as we say, absolute power corrupts a person absolutely in that regard. Understood? That is what we need to look into, and that is what we say analysis. And here you also have to use quotes. Okay. So in classes only, in our notes, printed notes which will be uploaded, the end of chapter, there is certain quotes which has been given. We have given 7 to 8 quotes. Not necessary that you have to use all the 7 to 8 quotes. Read 1 or 2 quotes which you feel you are comfortable. Then sir, should I quote is as it is in that regard? Try to do it. If not possible, 70 to 80% you are able to recall the words, it's fine. Okay. But you have to practice the quotes. How to practice the quotes? After the class or whenever you read about it, have a rough page. Try to write the quotes repeatedly. Use the quotes repeatedly. Then you will benefit. And not only that, the same quotes you can also use it in your essay and ethics paper. So for example, when we read about capitalism in political science, we read a quote about what capitalism has created highlands of prosperity, which is surrounded by oceans of poverty. That is indirectly telling out inequality is on the rise. That you can write in your essay paper also if there is any question on inequality. In ethics, there is any question on equality. Any point? So mains is not about reading more. Mains is more about whatever you have read, how effectively you use it in the examination. So that is what we will also try in the class, that how you will be able to develop. So our first target will be covering this 9 thinkers. Okay. So tomorrow we will be starting with Plato, and simultaneously we will go one after the other, and in between you are also trying to solve questions. That I am telling how we will be proceeding. So in between the class itself, after every chapter, we will be taking up certain questions. I will solve as much PYQs as possible, but then slowly you also have to start writing answers in class itself. Okay, we will give end 10 minutes or 15 minutes. We will keep it for answer writing. Okay, so question will be given, you try to answer. Initial days you will feel uncomfortable. That is fine. That is normal. Okay, so nobody enjoys answer writing. There will be a lot of problems. You might feel that you know the content, but you are not able to produce it on the paper. Sometimes you don't know how to start. Okay, what should be the introduction in that regard? Or some people will have the problem of recollection. You won't remember suddenly. So for that, the only solution lies is what? Revisions, writing more. Okay, so that's what it's like. The initial journey will be always uncomfortable, but once you get past it, then you will start enjoying writing answers. Understood? So anybody has any doubt in this part before we proceed to theory, you can ask. Any doubt regarding the thinkers part? Okay, what book to read? So I would suggest don't read any book for the thinkers part. You can depend upon the class notes. okay, we can completely root for it. I can give you guarantee that our class notes is on par to any other class notes with respect to the thinkers part. Okay, there is book, there is Shubrata Mukherjee, there is a book. Okay, Brian Nelson, there is one more book. If you want, you can use these books as a reference. Okay, but if you start reading these books, they're very vast in that regard, and many times many things which are not important for the exam has been included. Okay, but so our goal is here not to become a political science expert. That some students will have. Some students, like one of the students had asked, I want to get into Indian Foreign Service. So political science. There is no relation between what you will become and what option you take. There is no relation. Don't take an optional because tomorrow I want to become diplomat. That is why no. Optional is just a tool for you to get the rank. So what should be your criteria is that you should enjoy that option, one thing. Second one is the resources available. Third one is the optional fetching decent marks. If the three boxes tick, that you go with. Don't go with the option that I want to become diplomat, so I'll take political science. I want to become administrator, so I'll take PubAt. Okay. There is no relation between the two. So I want to become IRS, so I'll take economics. No. Any optional is only to score marks in the exam and to ensure that you get your decent rank. Now coming to the next part. How we have Western political thought, we also have to understand the Indian political thought. See, the political thought itself refers the ideas which have emerged during a certain period and at a certain place. So when we say Indian political thought, these are ideas which have emerged in India during a certain time period. So we can divide the Indian political thought into the ancient as well as modern political thought. Again in your syllabus, they have mentioned, it's not that we'll be reading about everybody. So if you tell, sir, should we read about Tilak? No, Tilak has also given many political ideas. Subhash Chandra Bose, no, they have mentioned who? They have mentioned what? One is Kautilya, that is book Artha Shastra. So here we will be looking into different ideas given by Kautilya. So we say that there is a popular saying that our first Prime Minister Nehru, he said that Kautilya is the Indian Machiavelli. But there is a historian called as Upinder Singh. She rejected that notion, saying that no, it is wrong. It should be the other way around. Machiavelli is the Italian Kautilya. Why they are comparing is that the ideas given by Kautilya and in Western political thought, you will be reading about Machiavelli. Both of their ideas are very similar. Okay, they mainly speak about politics is about capturing power. So they speak about how to capture power. What are the different ways you capture? And they will diverse ethics and politics. They say ethics and politics do not go hand in hand. So in politics, everything is fair in that regard. Whatever you do to capture power. So like Machiavelli has told the same thing. Machiavelli's Prince, his book is written called as Prince. It is addressed to the Prince that how he has to rule. And Machiavelli says that Prince should not worry about moral or immoral things. Whatever the Prince does in the interest of the state will be considered as amoral. You cannot judge on the yardstick of morality. Similarly, Kautilya also given the same ideas that national interest is important and how you have to rule. So what we say in present times, we have what you call spice, right? This Kautilya has spoken about ages back, and we also speak about honey trap, okay, using women to trap. He has spoken about something called as Vishakanyas. Okay. So their ideas are similar. So here, that is why Upender Singh told, Kautilya wrote Artha Shastra ages before what Machiavelli presented his Prince, and that is why she said that it should be the other way around. You have to call Machiavelli as what? The Italian Kautilya. But there are differences also. It's not that every idea they give similarities. That we'll go through once we do. What is the similarities in ideas of Kautilya and Machiavelli, and what are the dissimilarities. And similarly, we have to also look at what is the use of Arthashastra today. Okay. So many diplomats, etc., like Shiv Shankar Menon in that regard, in one of his article has written, the world in which Kautilya operated is not very different from the world in which today we are operating. So if you take international relations, geopolitics in that regard, Kautilya is famous for his Mandala Siddhanta. Okay, Kautilya ages back told, your immediate neighbor is your natural enemy and your neighbor's neighbor is your natural friend. You can this apply in context of India, Pakistan and India, Afghanistan. Okay, that is called as Mandala Siddhanta. So that is why Shiv Shankar Menon told, the world in which Kautilya operated is not very different from the world in which currently we operate. Okay, or the governance system. Kautilya also come in Babad. Okay, because there also he talks about administration in that regard. He speaks about how to stop corruption in that regard. So these ideas will be going through when we study Kautilya. Then you have Dharma Shastras. Then we will be studying about, as part of Dharma Shastra, Manu, ideas given by Manu. Manu is considered as the first lawgiver. But you can see Manu was deeply criticized by Ambedkar, Manu Smriti. You can see Ambedkar burnt Manu Smriti in public. We will go into that idea that what is there in Manu Smriti, what is the, but here we are not going in types of history in that regard. It's more of understanding this text and what is its implication on politics and state. Then we'll go into Buddhist political thought. Please understand, here we are not studying about Buddhism. We are studying about political ideas given by the Buddhists in that regard, including Gautama Buddha and his followers. So, if you take in present times, we have something called as soft power. Right? When you read international relations, there is something called as hard power, soft power. What is soft power? Using culture as one of the ways. See, soft power, there are many tools. Soft power basically means you are able to influence another person without using force. So if you take King Ashoka used this because he adopted Buddhism in that regard and used a concept called as cultural conquest. He told a king should not be a conqueror of land, he has to be a conqueror of hearts. And you can see he used to spread Buddhism to Southeast Asia, Sri Lanka, China in that regard. That is what the idea of soft power in that regard, it evolves from the Buddhist political tradition. So here we are going to study the important political ideas present by Buddha. Even here in Buddhism, how a king is chosen. King is not from the family. The most noblest person among the men, he will be chosen as the ruler. So here our analysis will be how Buddhism has contributed to Indian political thought. And if you look at the question paper also, questions are pretty straightforward. Okay, comment on Buddhist political thought, contribution of Buddhist political thought to Indian political thought, compare and contrast Hindu political thought, because Kautilya, Manu and all, they represent the Hindu political thought, and compare it with the Buddhist political thought. Then we will be reading about Aurobindo Ghosh in that regard. These are all your modern thinkers. Aurobindo Ghosh is mainly known for his concept of cultural nationalism in that regard. So he will describe us what is a nation. He gives a different interpretation of nation from the West in that regard. And as you know, in modern history also you read about Aurobindo Ghosh. Aurobindo Ghosh is a revolutionary. Okay, he disagreed with the methods followed by the moderates in that. So here we are going to analyze. Okay, not from a modern history point of view, about his ideas. That okay. So Aurobindo Ghosh says that you have to, even though he believed in, he believed in ahimsa in that regard, but he told himsa cannot be completely eliminated. There are situations where you have to use it. So he gives an example that if you consider your motherland as your own mother, and if somebody is choking your mother, will you sit silently or you will, kick them in that regard? So you have to understand his ideas and how that has contributed to growth of cultural nationalism. But there are also criticism in that regard. We have to look at the critics also, what they disagree with the ideas. Some people, like Bipin Chandra, Sumit Sarkar, they say that the idea presented by Aurobindo Ghosh later on went on to transform itself as a more of a Hindu nationalism rather than a cultural nationalism. It was not inclusive. It became exclusive in that regard. So many minorities were not attracted by the Hindu nationalism in that regard. So that is one of the critique which is there, that we will go into later once we dissect Aurobindo Ghosh. And then you have M.N. Roy. Okay, M.N. Roy, as you know, you would have read in modern history. What is he? He's a communist. He's what we can say, the founder of the Communist Party. But again, we are studying about when he established the ideas presented by him. So he was a revolutionary. Then he was attracted towards Marxism. He became a Marxist. Then he was a critic of Gandhi when he was a Marxist. Then he changed. Why he changed? He started finding faults within Marxism, but not telling that he rejected Marxism. He wanted to reform Marxism in that regard. And finally, he went on to form his own party called as the Radical, Democratic Party, and formed his own ideology called as Radical Humanism. So our central understanding is his idea of radical humanism. Why did M.N. Roy transform himself from a revolutionary to a Marxist, then to a radical humanist in that regard? And what is the weakness of the idea? What is the strength of the idea? That will be reading as part of what M.N. Roy. Then you have Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. So Syed Ahmad Khan presented certain ideas. One section they view Syed Ahmad Khan as what a modernizer. Okay, he spoke about modernization. He spoke about the mainly upliftment of the Muslim community. And you can see Syed Ahmad Khan is also the founder of the Aligarh Muslim University in that regard. So he presented many ideas. In a summary, what you can say his ideas was about, he wanted the Muslim youth to take up modern education, get exposed to Western scientific education, and he also said that Quran and Western education are compatible. They, it's not essentially they go against each other. But he told the fault lies in whom? The fault lies in the religious heads who in that regard, who have created this atmosphere where Quran and science. So even if you see in the national movement, let us take the social religious reforms movement, I think you would have read something called as reformist movements, revivalist movement. What do you mean by reformist movements? Those who try to challenge the religious conservative elements, try to reform the religion on more scientific lines and make the religion more modern. Revivalist movements are what? Those movements which wanted status quo. They wanted the present religious systems to continue. For example, if you take Brahmo Samaj was a reformist organization. If you take Bharat, Dharma Sabha and this Bharat Mahamandal, one organization, they all wanted Sati system to continue. Okay, they told state should not interfere in religious activities. Among Muslims, if you take, most of them were revivalist movements. Deoband, Farazi. One among them who was a reformer was Syed Ahmad Khan, who spoke about that Muslim community or the Muslim youth should take up modern education. So you can see Syed Ahmad Khan, he also wrote an article called as the Loyal Mohammedans of India. Because when this 1857 revolt happened, the British initially felt the fault was with whom? It was these Muslims were the main behind the revolt. And he wanted to convince the British that Muslims were not responsible for what happened in the revolt. It was the East Indian Company and their maladministration what led to the revolt. Why he wanted to convince the British? He wanted British to help, in terms of education, giving more finances to the Muslim country. And you can see the British used Syed Ahmad Khan as a tool to create, divide and rule. So you can see that Syed Ahmad Khan is actually the originator of two-nation theory. Okay. So you can see both aspects. On one hand, he is a modernizer. Many of his ideas are much relevant even today. If you go by the Sachar Committee report, the Muslims are one of the most backward communities in India. They had recommended 4% reservation, which was not implemented in that regard. But how to reform the community? Many of ideas of Syed Ahmad Khan are relevant even today. But there are certain, criticism also. When it comes to women education, he was more conservative than being a liberal. So he told, like, for women education, there was a specific, thing that they can be educated at house itself rather than, externally. So we look into these ideas, try to explain that, what is the importance of Syed Ahmad Khan and his ideas in present day times, and in the past also what role he played. Then we will be reading about Ambedkar and his political ideas. So Ambedkar is he's popularly called as modern Manu. means he is the giver of the Indian constitution. Now we'll understand different ideas. So Ambedkar and if you take Gandhi, many of their ideas are contradicting, especially on Ambedkar's view on Varna system. Ambedkar has also written the books saying that who are the untouchables, how did untouchability originate in that regard. He gives a different perspective about how caste system got evolved. And Ambedkar also speaks about the Indian national movement. So if you go from Dalit perspective of the national movement, which is Ambedkar's view, the freedom struggle can be viewed by different sections differently, right? So if you take from Ambedkar's point of view, he says that freedom means it is not only freeing ourselves from the British rule. Freedom means it should be complete liberation of an individual from all kinds of restrictions. So if you look at the Dalit perspective of the Indian national movement, mainly represented by Ambedkar, Periyar, they say that India might be free, but all Indians are not yet free. Because again you can see internal colonialism is there, caste, religious imbalance. And Ambedkar's idea of social justice. Okay, so you can see Ambedkar's idea of social justice also if you read the Indian constitution, you will understand it. Affirmative action, reservation. But we will go into understanding what is his ideas of social justice. And here we will be briefly touching upon the difference between Ambedkar and Gandhi. Okay, so if you look at Ambedkar and Gandhi, both of them differed on many fronts. Let us take on Varna system. Gandhi told Varna system as a whole cannot be criticized. He told Varna system, what you can say, was initially based on your what you can say abilities, but later it started becoming more on birth in that regard. But Ambedkar is highly critical of Varna system. He says unless Varna system is removed, that is why he has written the book called as Annihilation of Caste. Unless you remove caste, there is no improvement within the Hindu society as a whole. Then with respect to conversions also they have differences. Like Ambedkar is of the view that it's an individual choice, that you have to choose any religion you want. So Ambedkar famously told, I might be born as a Hindu, but it is my right to not to die as a Hindu. So he converted into Buddhism. But Gandhi was more of a conservative. He told, you are born into a religion, it's not your choice. So there is no idea of conversion, you have to continue in that religion. Third one, you can see the Pune Pact which is there. There also both of them differed initially. So Ambedkar was more in favor of what the separate electorate was to be given. But Gandhi opposed separate electorate, and he went on to fast unto death in Yarwada jail. And later they came to a compromise. So Ambedkar's logic was that those who are socially segregated, you have kept the untouchables out of the Hindu society. What is wrong in they being politically segregated? Gandhi was of the view that Ambedkar is mistaken here, that saying that by bringing separate electorate, untouchability won't disappear. He told untouchability will become more permanent, and that is why he used the exact word. Untouchables will become untouchables in perpetuity, permanently. And that is why later they came to an agreement called as joint electorate with reserved constituencies. But again Ambedkar has written a book called as What Congress and Gandhi Did to the Untouchables, and there he is highly critical of Gandhi. And there is also an interview of Ambedkar given to BBC in 1959-55, just before his death. So we will take a look at that interview also, where he makes certain points in that regard, that what was his problem with Gandhi in that regard. So Ambedkar and Gandhi we will be studying simultaneously, because that will get a better understanding of comparing the views of two persons. So if you go back to the first quote what I said, Lasky, every political thinker is a child of his times. So were Ambedkar and Gandhi. They were born in different conditions. Their ideas were shaped differently. Because if you look at Ambedkar, he was born into the Dalit community. So you can see he faced a lot of discrimination. That shaped his ideas. Okay. And Gandhi was brought up as a pivot Hindu in that regard. He was in his house, he was influenced by Ramayana, Mahabharata in that regard. And most of Gandhi's ideas, if you see, he speaks about the idea of state, an ideal state. What is his ideal state? Rama Rajya. So you can see the influence of the Hindu philosophy on shaping Gandhi's ideas. So that is why we say, when we read any scholar, we need to get the context under which he is emerging. Got the point? And that is what I say in political science also, there is a very thin line of difference between politics and political theory. It is because you cannot remove politics out of political science. but you have to be neutral in that regard. So we see in instances we'll be discussing about the role of BJP, the role of Congress. You cannot separate. You cannot tell sir I'll write answer without using any political parties. No, you cannot write an answer like that. They've asked many questions. If you take previous year PSR paper, I think in 2020 or 2019 they've asked a question: are political parties more important or personality is more important in Indian politics? So now if you tell sir I'll write an answer without using any name of a political party, any politician, obviously your answer won't fetch marks. You have to use names, but you have to use in such a way that it is more balanced. Okay, you should not reflect your ideology on your paper. Ideology, it's your wish. Anybody can have any ideology. We are a democratic country. It's your wish. I can have an ideology. You can have an ideology. But here, it's not political ideology. We are studying the theory. You are a political scientist in the sense what? You are understanding what things are happening, why things are happening in such a way, and you have to present both sides of the angle. Understand? Like uniform civil code. We will be reading in part B. You cannot write an answer, I don't like uniform civil code because I don't like it. No. You have to write about an analysis. What is uniform civil code? Okay. Which part of the constitution it comes? What was the debate which happened in Constituent Assembly? Why uniform civil code has been not yet implemented? What are the challenges in implementing it? Even though it is needed, how to enact uniform civil code, because India is a multi-diverse country in that regard. There is also contradictions within the constitution. Article 25 says that you can follow your religious belief. Article 44 says that there should be a uniform civil code. So how do we manage? It's not only about religion. There are many tribal communities who have been guaranteed their customs, culture. How do we bring them into equation? So these are the challenges there. So your answer should what? It should touch upon different aspects. Don't try to write an answer only from one perspective. So this is what you will be reading at Indian political thought. Now here again I said the best source for this is the class notes, but along with this you can read IGNOU. IGNOU material is very good for the Indian political thought, okay, especially on Aurobindo Ghosh, Gandhi and Ambedkar. But you can also back on the class notes which will be provided. Okay, similarly, we have provided notes, quotes separately, etc. Okay. So this will be about the thinkers part, Western political thought and the Indian political thought. So you have any doubts here to ask? You can ask now if you have any doubts. Any doubts you have in this part? About preparation part, or how to go about it. You got an idea, right? So we will be mainly studying about these ideas. We are not studying about the history, where they studied, what they did. Even I don't know where they studied, what they did. It's mainly about the political ideas what we are studying and trying to examine. And we will be going purely from an exam point of view, okay, not from a knowledge point of view, because there is a thin line of difference. In UPSC what you can say is that you need knowledge. Without knowledge you cannot crack the exam. But we say that too much knowledge is also not useful in that regard. So it's like Laffer's curve. I think in economy you would have read. So if you increase the tax to a certain extent, your tax base will grow. But if you increase beyond that, your tax base will start to shrink. Similarly here, if you read, if you try to do a PhD, it is of no use in that regard. Your preparation should be mainly focused on exam, and the best way to do it, previous year questions. That's what I told. Previous year question is one of the most understated statement. I am not only telling optional, even GS papers if you take, always keep PYQs with you, and PYQs will always give you the path that what is it needed, what is not needed. And especially for part A, political science you take, 80% of the questions repeated. Check if you want, you go check the question. 80% of the questions they keep repeating in the same way. They have not changed anything. Same question, same pattern, and here questions are also pretty straightforward. Okay, they'll ask comment on Plato's philosopher king, comment on Aristotle's classification of constitution, Machiavelli's view on religion in that regard. Same to same. So this is one area, if you solve a lot of PYQs, they'll add a lot of benefit to your preparation. I don't know. And second part is that when we complete in the class, okay, don't try to think that you have listened to the class, I am done, I know this subject. No. That usually happens. In thinkers part, what will happen is that when you read for the first time, you will get highly confused. Who told what, which theory comes where. The best way to resolve it is repeated revisions. Okay. So what many students will do is that, now we will be going in a flow, right, we will be doing Plato, Aristotle, Machiavelli. So they will also just covering with the class. But by the 15th class or 16th class, if they look back and they think about Plato, they won't remember anything about Plato. So don't do that mistake. Don't try to go with the class. Even if you are lagging behind, it's fine. In class is mainly for explanation. And that is why we have provided both online and offline. So that you have missed anything in class, you can go back and watch once in that regard. So what you do is that keep revision, okay, weekly revision. Revise Plato 2-3 times before you go on to the next thinker in that regard. So keep frequent time for revision. Don't just keep blindly reading all this. Got the point? Now coming to the other part. Now we have to go into the concepts which are there in part A. So there we will be starting with the difference between, so the subject is called as what? Political science. So why it is called as political science? What is what is science involved here? What is science about it? No. See, only physics, chemistry, mathematics, these are all science. What do you basically mean science? Science is something which is based on facts, which can be verified, etc. So what is so scientific about politics? So political science basically means we are not referring in terms of natural science, okay, like biology, chemistry. We are more referring that it is a systematic study and understanding of politics through logic and through building methods which can be verified. That is what we mean by political science. It is a scientific approach of understanding politics, but not in terms of what we speak about natural science. So politics can be also understood in a systematic way. That is why the subject is called as political science. So the subject initially was mainly in terms of political philosophy. Later it started acquiring what? More of scientific frameworks. Especially there is something called as behavioralism in political science. Behavioralism tried to push the subjects towards what? Developing scientific techniques, developing scientific methods, and that is how the subject started to become political science. So here we will be studying first what is politics, then we will be studying what is political theory. Okay. Political theory comprises of two parts: political philosophy and political science, and we have to go through what is the difference between political philosophy and political science, because you can see Plato is considered as the father of political philosophy, Aristotle is considered the father of political science, and then we will be studying about what is the application or use of political theories. So this will be one chapter we will be going through, understanding all these elements. And you can see many questions have come here, differentiate between political philosophy and political science, okay, or they might ask comment on political philosophy in that regard. Again here you have the same thinkers, okay, Plato, Aristotle, same will come here. So, but in between you have some thinkers, but these thinkers are what? Passing reference. We don't study in detail about them. They just come and go in certain places. And then we will be studying about the chapter called as ideologies. So what do you mean by an ideology? We can say a group of people believing in certain ideas as the absolute truth, coming together to follow that particular idea, to implement that particular idea, we can say it's an ideology. But there are different meanings of ideology that we will understand once we go into the chapter. But here we will be studying different ideas. What are the different ideologies? You have liberalism, you have socialism, you have Marxism, you have fascism, then you have feminism. Ideas of Gandhi itself has grouped as an ideology called as Gandhian. ideology. Then you have post-modernism. Okay, so if you look at two ideologies, Marxism and Gandhism, they have been named after a person, okay, because their influence was more. Other ideologies, we can say, they have been developed by people having similar ideas. Okay, if you take Locke, J.S. Mill, they all come into liberalism. And if you take Karl Marx, Lenin, etc., they come into more Marxism. Even people like Nehru had similar ideas. You can be classified as socialism, because there are different varieties of socialism. There is not one variety of socialism. Okay. Feminism, those who spoke about women empowerment, etc. Now we are going to understand how these ideas developed, how these ideology developed, what is the impact of ideology on human society. Okay. And within liberalism, there are different types. Classical liberalism, you have positive liberalism, then you have neoliberalism, different varieties within it. So we need to understand what are the different variants and what is the importance of this ideology in today. And this is very much also helps you to understand the current ways how states work. Okay. In some countries, you can say the states will offer health facilities, education facilities, mainly you see in socialist states. But you can say in more capitalist states, the role of state is very minimum. It does not go into providing education, health. They mainly to what doing policing functions in that regard. So you will be able to understand, because why I am telling the thinkers and ideologies, we say it is the soul of your part A. If you master these two chapters, rest any chapter you take, democracy, power, authority, liberty, equality, democracy, if you have properly read this subject, you will understand it is nothing but repetition of the same thing in a mere concrete way. If you know ideologies very well, and if you know the thinkers very well, the rest chapters for the democracy, power, authority, it is nothing but repetition of the same ideas. When we say power, we are looking at how liberals view power. That's it. So that is why when we also do, first we will do thinkers, then we will do the introduction to that political theory, then we will do ideologies. Once if you understand ideologies, theories of state, equality, democracy, what is that, power, more and so repeated things. And so that's why ideology is a very important chapter. Not only here, even when you read second paper, paper 2, see one complaint what many people say, political science syllabus is huge. That is one general complaint. But actually if you go into this syllabus, you see repeated themes, multiple places. So here you would have read about liberalism, etc. You have liberalism again in paper 2, that is theories of international relations. And in paper 2, part A, you would have read about non-aligned movement. In part B, India and NAM is there. In part A, WTO is there. In part B, India and WTO is there. Again a point. See, the point is that it repeats a lot. So what many people tend to do is that they will see the syllabus only by, that is what we say, like what Plato said. If you only see what is, that you think is the reality. But reality is something else. For that you need inner knowledge to understand the thing. So that is what many people think, that syllabus is too huge in that regard. But actually that is not the fact. You can go check the syllabus once. There are many areas which will overlap. You have social movements in part B, political science, paper 1. Same thing, you have new social movements in paper 2, part A, that is comparative politics. You get the point? So whatever you read here is also applicable to your paper 2. Okay, that is why I told ideology should not be neglected. It is the soul of the subject, ideologies and the thinkers. If you are strong in these two areas, others will become pretty simple. So once we read ideologies, then we will be going into what? Theories of state. So here we will be basically reading what? Same thing, I think in polity you would have already read. What is a nation? What is a state? What is the difference between nation and a state? What is a nation state? What is a state nation? What is a government? What is a civil society? These are basic things. Now, bit advanced we will go. What are the different types of state? So you read ideologies, na? Same thing, connect. There is liberal theory of state. Then there is socialist state, then there is fascist state, then there is Marxist. Actually, Marxism does not believe in the idea of state, because if you see the end goal of Karl Marx is what? He says that state will wither away. Okay, we live in a stateless and a classless society. That you will understand when you read that. Then you have Gandhi's Ramarajya. Gandhi also comes close to what he also believes that he's an anarchy. He is somewhere close to comes to anarchy. There is no need of a state. And you have feminist perspective of state. Feminist means the feminist scholars, how they see state. See, common themes is there. Many women scholars, they see that the state is nothing but a reflection of patriarchy, male domination. How? What is state? State, you can say there are three organs of the state: executive, legislative, judiciary. Who is executive? MPs, MLAs. Sorry, legislative. So if you take Indian Parliament, what is the percentage of women who are present in the Indian Parliament? It's just 14%. Okay. Take certain laws in that regard. Now it has changed. I am telling you. Before, if you take, women did not have equal rights with respect to properties. Or even till recently, if you take the adultery laws which were there in India, they were more they were removed, right? IPC section, I think 498A or something. It was decriminalized. Why? Because there, the thing is that women, because this law was made by the British in that regard. At that point of time, Britain was a very conservative society. So what they had done there, they told woman is a property of a man. So if you understood adultery laws, what is adultery? Relationship outside marriage. It's an offense. So if there are two couples, husband, wife, let us say one husband has a affair with the wife of the other person. Now who can complain is that the husband of the other woman can lodge a complaint. Here the wife cannot lodge a complaint of the first husband. The reason is that they viewed women as a property. So if you have taken away my property, I can lodge a case against you. So that is why they recently decriminalized the thing. So feminists say that many laws are also patriarchal in nature. Or let us take maternity benefits bill. Initially, I am telling now they have changed it. Now there is, I think, paternity leave is also there. I am telling the first time when maternity benefits bill came, why you need to read editorial pages is that, or Yojana, magazine in that. I am not telling every magazine. Once in a while you can just flip through. So when we were preparing, there was one article which was written by a feminist. I don't remember her name. She had written very well, very dynamic article, criticizing the maternity benefits bill. Because when they brought the draft bill or something like that, they had never included paternity leave. So she criticized as what? Because the government had put forward even in an Yojana cover of two women carrying children and saying that we have empowered the women. So she criticized that, saying that the government, the state is trying to promote a notion that taking care of the children is only the duty of the wife or the woman, not the husband. So that is what you are looking at an issue from a feminist point of view, from a woman's point of view. So what is their perspective of the state? That is what there is one scholar, I don't remember correctly. She says that when I look at the state, it appears a man to me, because the state works in the interest of the men. It is dominated by men, executed by men. Women have no place in that regard. Okay. But again, in feminism we have three types: liberal feminism, Marxist feminism, radical feminism. But overall, what is their view on state? You get my point? But when we do, we will go specifically who has told what, etc. This is just a brief idea I told what you will be studying here. Got the point? So that's what I told. If you have read ideologies, this is nothing separate, because in ideologies also you would have read the same thing. Then we will be going into the concept of power, authority, and legitimacy. Power, authority, and legitimacy. So again, what we will be reading here? We will be reading here, first of all, what is power? When we say politics, the first thing comes to the mind is power. So here there are different perspectives of power. Again I told, ideologies, liberal perspective of power, Marxist perspective of power, feminist perspective of power. So feminism says that power is what? See, in simple terms, what is power? Your ability to make another person listen to what you say against his will. That is power. So they say that, feminists will say that power is what? Man exercise power over women through different ways. For example, marriage is one such thing. Rape, they also say, it is nothing but an exercise of the male domination over the female. But there are different people who give different new ideas. So you have one such scholar is Hannah Arendt, what you read. Hannah Arendt, again you will repeat here. Hannah Arendt gives a different point of view. She says that power is not located in individual. Power is always located in a society or people. When people come together, power is automatically generated. Then what you will tell, individually I have power? No, that is strength. She distinguishes between what is strength, what is force, what is power. She says a power is sui generis, means it is automatically created when people come together. So she is not speaking power from a perspective of domination, she is speaking power from the perspective where you have the ability to resist domination. Okay. Then you have Michael Foucault, he is more interesting. He says that all these scholars, they are looking power at only broader levels, they are not going at microscopic levels. So he is of the view that power operates everywhere, it is like blood which flows through vessels, it is located everywhere. Without your knowledge, you are being controlled. So he gives examples in that regard. He gives different examples, like if you take, there is something called as panopticon. In olden days, what they used to do in jails, they used to construct a semicircular jail. Central of the jail, they used to keep a watchtower. And the watchtower will be, the light will be going from right to left, left to right. The idea behind is that what? The convict who is there, because you cannot keep one policeman behind every convict to keep him in check. He will always feel that somebody is watching me and he will self-regulate himself. So what Michael Foucault says that we are also living in a jail. We think we are free, but we are actually not free. The society is exercising power through different means. And we are behaving, we are self-regulating ourselves according to the social needs. So his idea of power is different. He goes to microscopic level. He says knowledge can be a source of power. What you read, that can be a source of power. Now when we say gender, we say male and female. He says why it should be male and female. Why we are forced to identify as male and female. So you are only going by biological difference. In every male there is a different identity. So his idea will be. So there are different ideas of power. Then we will be studying what is the difference between power and authority. So there is a popular saying, if power is naked sword, authority is sword in its scabbard. The meaning is that, right, a sword, but when you put the covering for the sword, that is called as a scabbard. Power and authority is simple. So they say authority is nothing but power plus legitimacy. When you are exercising power with consent or it has been sanctioned, we call it as authority. For example, as an IS officer, what you command to your lower subordinates, it is authority. Okay. So we will go into what is the difference between power and what are the different types of authority. You have Max Weber who comes here, he speaks about traditional authority. For example, you go to your house, your father, I am telling largely, you cannot tell sir, no sir, I don't agree with my father, I disagree with my father. That is you, I am telling largely. In Indian families, the command of the father is obeyed. Who gave the father the authority to, he will command that you will obey. This is a tradition we have followed from before. Or if you take Pope in Christianity, he has some authority. Who gave him that power? It's a tradition. Then we have charismatic authority. You listen to somebody because you are deeply attracted by the idea presented at person. The charisma, what he spells. For example, you can take these popular leaders like Narendra Modi in that regard. They have charismatic authority. People will listen to them because, or Gandhi. So if you look at Gandhi, Gandhi actually resigned from the Congress after 1920s in that regard. He was not even a member of the Congress. But still if you see whose authority went in the Congress, it was Gandhi because of his charisma. So even in 1939, if you take Subhash Chandra Bose, resigned from the Indian National Congress saying that, I can't work in a system where most of the Congress members side with Gandhi. So that is what we call as charismatic authority. Then you have legal rational authority. What do you mean by legal rational authority? Now tomorrow you go on to clear civil services, you go on to become an IS officer. You becoming an IS officer, there are certain powers attached to that post. So you are holding that post which is sanctioned by the law. That is legal. But there can be a mixture certain times. Okay. So you have charismatic legal rational authority you can have. So there are different types of authority. Again you have different types of power. Hard power, soft power, smart power. Then we have to go into what gives you power. Is it wealth, political power, military strength? So we have to look into. So that is why we say power is a contested concept. Now if you look at actually this topic, again go back to your paper 2. Same to same concept is there, power in international relations. If you go to international relations concept, they have concept of balance of power, there also have concept of power. So there only we are looking from an international relations point of view, but the concept and idea remains the same. You can use these scholars there also. Okay. Then we will be going into the concept of rights. Okay, theories of rights. Then we will be also looking at the concept of human rights. So I think when you have read polity, you would have read something called as fundamental rights. But there also you would have read there is something called as natural rights. There is something called as legal rights, there is something called as constitutional rights. Same thing, liberal theory of rights, Marxist concept of rights, feminist concepts of rights in that regard. Then what are the different types of rights? Natural right, legal right, political right, economic right, social right. And this Ambedkar's famous saying is there now, legal and political rights are meaningless without social economic rights. This is one of the questions which has been also asked. See now, problem what happens is that why some people will struggle in that regard, especially in subjects like political science, PubAt or sociology, you have to have good analytical abilities. Okay, and how do you develop analytical abilities? For that you have to read editorial pages in that regard. That's it, no nothing else. You learn the art of analyzing. So now this question is there now. What is the question I told? Legal and political rights are meaningless without social and economic rights. Okay, let us think. They have given the question, comment, and they have also given like Ambedkar. Ambedkar actually told me democracy. I have just changed it to the word rights. Now tell me what does come to your mind. For the online students, is it audible or not audible? Supriya Nilgund has told Vidayak Ramadev Singh, he wants a break. We'll give break after, you're honest, and we'll give break after part A. Just tell me what comes to your mind. You don't worry about theory, etc. Okay, upliftment of lower section of society. But you have to tell me what in that.
Legal rights cannot be implemented without society accepting.
How? Give an example.
If the society means the executive does not accept it, they will not put the effort to implement the law.
No, see, that's not doing. That's a weak example. You are just telling theory. I need examples. What you told is correct. You told legal rights are useless without social and economic rights. Give me an example to say that how legal rights or political rights are useless if there is no social and economic rights. Okay, you give me an, okay, fine, that point is correct. Take society, gender is a problem, that patriarchal society. Now give me an example that how political rights and this will be connected.
Not accepted to employment.
But you have to tell me what is your political right there and what is your social right. Very good. That's a good example. So if you take in panchayats, there is 33% reservation for women. Even though that is a legal right, it is not effective if women are not socially empowered. What is socially empowered? Though panchayats they have 33% reservation, we see something called as pati panchayats. What are pati panchayats? That the husbands they run the show, the women are just symbolic, rubber stamp. They do have legal right, but does not make any sort of difference. Why? Because our society is still patriarchal in nature. The other example what you can give is that, I think he told about fundamental right. You have certain fundamental rights as what right against conviction, etc. But this will be only useful provided you have money power. So for example, if you take India's jails in that regard, in every 4 persons, 3 persons in jails are under trials. What do you mean by an under trial? They have not been convicted, but their case has not yet come up for hearing, and they have not got bail or they don't have money to get bail. And if you look at 80% of under trials in India, even more you can say, are mainly belonging to scheduled caste, scheduled tribe and minorities or economically weaker section. Why? Because they don't have money power to influence the judicial system. So even though you have this legal right in that regard, it is of no use. Still money and social influence matters a lot. The other example you can also give, Indian Parliament. I don't know, Indian Parliament just has 14% women MPs. It's your political right. What is your political right? Every individual of this country, citizen of this country is eligible to stand for elections. But it is meaningless unless our society changes. Patriarchal society. Huh.
Sir, even reserved seats, sir.
Hmm.
If seat is general category,
Hmm.
there are very less number of people who belong to SC.
Huh, that also you can write. Exactly. Even if you see the percentage for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, largely it is only that much. What reservation is given, the percentage of representation is more or so there itself. It means what? The ability for a SC candidate or ST candidate to win in a non-reserved seat is very difficult. Or you can tell why we do not have so many women MPs. You can bring reasons. One, elections require muscle power and money power. Women don't have both. Yeah, because you can see money is less, right? Muscle power means what? If you go this outside, you have seen these boats are there, na? I don't know about North India. In southern India or in Karnataka, you can see that if you go outside for these festivals or this thing, boats will be there. Board ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಂತ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಅಣ್ಣನಿಗೆ ಜೈ, ತಮ್ದಿರೆಲ್ಲ ಕೆಳಗಡೆ ನಾವು ಕೋರ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ. Now who are these small photo guys? They are the muscle power. Okay, they get you the votes during the elections. Have you seen anywhere in the poster, ಅಕ್ಕನಿಗೆ ಜೈ, ನಾವು ತಂಗಿರಲ್ಲ ಇದೀವಿ? No, have you seen any? It's very rare. Even if you see there is, I don't know, in some seat which is ward level, it is reserved. The husband, before he was the ward member, now he will make his wife the order. There you will see the women corporators photo. Means for example, for the, I think we have online students. So for North Indian crowd is that, so like in your state, if you have any ward level members, so you can see the posters outside. So they will be like, many supporters of these MLAs, MPs, and they are well-wishers in that regard. Happy birthday to our MLA, and they have their own picture along with them. So my point is that how many of them like that you have women members photo? No, because they don't have the muscle power. Obviously, money power is not there. So that is why it is very difficult for women in India to get seat and to win elections and to get a. You can say theoretically political right is there. Practically that political right is not useful unless you are able to bring, what you can say, true social empowerment and economic equality. You can go on. 88% of India's MPs, according to Association of Democratic Reforms, are what? Millionaires. So it's indicating what? If you have more money power, it is much easier for you to get political power. This is what exactly Plato also told. Why Plato told that those who want to become rulers should not have any private property, because he wanted to separate both. Those who have economic power should not have political power. Those who have political power should not yield any kind of economic power. So as I told, you need to interlink. When you interlink, you will find it. And this is when why students struggle is that if you have just plainly read and went, book to book, obviously in exam you won't succeed. Why you won't succeed? Because you have never thought in that direction, right? See, answer writing is an ability that it should not come only from the book. The book is only to give you knowledge. Based on that, you have to be able to connect what you can say. I don't know, for some one or two reasons, what will happen is that there is a general trend saying that don't read newspapers. Yeah, true. Nobody should read newspaper for 5 hours, 6 hours. No. But it's a completely wrong study saying that I'm not going to touch newspaper only, I'm just going to read Vision magazine or Shunya magazine, and you'll end up getting Shunya in exam. No, read, they'll help, but have a context. Okay, read 1 or 2 editorial pages, it'll take half an hour time, 15 minutes time. You get a new perspective on that issue altogether. So, see this, when we read, okay, that's what when I wrote, I think I've already told in our political science session itself, that initial 2 mains I struggled a lot because of wrong strategy. What was the wrong strategy? Just reading one notes and trying to go reproduce the same notes. Never did answer writing practice. Forget about answer writing practice. At least you should have discussed the question. Okay, this question can be handled in this direction. Now what will happen is that same question won't come in the exam. But if you have discussed, you have the ability to think and write. So what you will do, you will connect the dots. Then you will be able to write a very good answer in the examination. Very important. So for this question, theory part you just write. Theory part you can add Gandhi and Lasky in that regard. But examples are the most important ones for you to get marks in the exam. If you just write theory and come, this scholar told this, that scholar told this. There is one popular myth in political science also is that we have to use too many scholars. No, you have to use scholars. It is required. But if you overuse something, it is of no use. If you just write in your answer, Raja Mohan told this, Harshvi Pond told that, then M.N. Rai told this, Ambedkar told that. They will ask you what is your opinion. You write their opinion, but along with bring your own analysis also. Okay. So this is what we will be reading in rights. Then we will be emerging the how did human rights emerge. There is a relation between human rights and natural rights. Okay. So we will try to trace what is the link between human rights and natural rights. And then we will look into whether human rights today, what is the status of human rights today. So you can see that why I say political science, you can use it to connect. Now IR is happening. Take again paper 2 part A. There is also a concept called as human rights. The last part in paper 2 part A, contemporary global issues. In that human rights is also one issue they have given. Same human rights you are reading in part A also. It's not different. The concept remains the same. There what you are reading is that if you look at United States of America, one criticism is that they make use of human rights to intervene in other countries' affairs. Okay, for example, they entered Afghanistan saying that we are going to protect human rights. But what is this thing about the violation of human rights? There is a popular joke which they say about Americans. Means it's a joke, it's not a real thing. This Obama, when he went to Iraq or somewhere to school to address students. So he addressed the students, he gave a lecture about how America is protecting the world, etc., etc. So one fellow stood up and he asked, there is a saying that the Americans are the biggest violators of human rights. So they told, okay, I'll answer the question after the break. So after the break they reassembled, the session started. One more student, he stood up and he told, where is my friend Abdullah? So they told, who is Abdullah? The person who asked you the question. So that is how the Americans run their foreign policy. They preach a lot about human rights, but they are one of the biggest violators of human rights in that regard. So they will be looking at whether these humanitarian interventions, means in the name of human rights, trying to interfere in other, to what extent it is good. Okay, it's not that only America has done it, even India has done it. Bangladesh, India intervened. We had to intervene. So that we will be studying the debate, okay, to what extent it is there or not. Or there is also a debate saying that human rights is more of Western values. It does not include Asian values or African values or Chinese values. It is mainly developed from Western countries to promote their values. For example, we say that Sunday is a public holiday. Right, in India it's a public holiday. In Sri Lanka it's a public holiday. Why it is Sunday? You will logically think, yeah, Sunday is holiday, right? For academic it's not holiday. Then government holidays on Sunday. So why it is on Sunday? Basically it is based on Christian values. They go to church on Sunday, that is why. So many people tell why Sunday should be a holiday. Like Muslims will tell why can't Friday be a holiday. Hindus we can tell every alternative day can be a holiday. Why it should be only Sunday? So there is a view that the rights which have been developed, it's mainly through a Western lens. It is not through ancient. So that debate we'll look into. It's also not completely true also saying that human rights are only promoted by Western countries. I'm telling one perspective which is there. And even our External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar also recently in one of his press meet, he also said the hypocrisy of the European countries. So he told the Europe's problem is that they think that Europe's problem is global problem, but world problem is not Europe's problem. So he told the European countries, what you can say, sensitivity towards human rights, he told maybe it is based on proximity, the distance. So now they are very concerned about what is happening in Ukraine, because Ukraine is part of Eurasia. But China is bringing day to day human rights of the Uyghur Muslims in that regard, and Rohingya issue in Myanmar in that regard, and Taliban come back, and all the America and the European countries, they came to an agreement with Taliban. So the question is that why it is only the human rights should be seen from what Europe and the West does. So we will try to look into that, to what extent there is truth or not. So that's why I told. Here also if you see, this is there in part A, this is also there in part B. If you look at part B also, there is something called as social movements, paper one only. There you have human rights movements in India. Again a point, there is something called as human rights movement in India. Take paper 2 part A, human rights at global level. So you can see one topic, it is repeated in 3 sections. So for this you don't need to read three times. It is only one time. That's why I told. When you look at the syllabus appears very vast. But if you break down or decode the syllabus, there are mini syllabus which will overlap. So there is no separate preparation for each part. And in part B also there are human rights. They had asked one question in exam. Okay. Duration of the course. Yeah, we'll come to duration of the course and what will be the benefits shortly. The human rights movement, they asked one question in exam. They had asked that human rights dilemma in India, comment. I think this question they had asked in 2014 or 2015, I don't remember, for 10 marks, 150 words. Now you have read about, theoretically in book, what is definition of human rights, what are the features of human rights, scholars, 2-3 scholars you have read for human rights. Now what happens is that when we say, they'll set the paper tough. Okay, tough or easy is relative. Okay, if you have not studied well, paper is obviously tough. If you have studied well, paper will be relatively easy. See, that is what one thing I have realized is that, including me at that point of time, we just read, we don't think. We just read. You read newspaper, you read. You will never reflect upon it. You don't go back and think about it. There is an editorial page in newspaper. You read it. Okay, it's a viewpoint. It's a viewpoint of one person in that regard. There might be a counter perspective to the same issue. When you don't develop thinking abilities, now what will happen here? You don't know what to write only. You will get confused. And the same case in 2014 or 2015 when I wrote, I saw the question, I've read everything about human rights. But what you will write? They're saying human rights dilemma in India. So I started writing, human rights are natural rights are human rights in embryonic form. Introduction, good. Then human rights are inalienable. Human rights are given to humans, they cannot be taken away by the state. Okay. Human rights have been essential. We have National Human Rights Commission in India. You use that to protect. I wrote like 150 words, I filled in. Now you only tell why will they give you marks. Yeah, what you have written is fine. But question is something different, right? Why will they give you marks? And I think I told about my friend, this Darshan and Hanmant Raju. See, my perception was that I have read the subject very well. These people have taken the subject, because the Darshan especially, he studied only for 4 months or 3 months. What will he write? But I was shocked when he told the answer. So when we had discussion like what you wrote here, so he told what do you mean by dilemma, confusion. So he told human rights movements in India are in a dilemma, means they are confused. So he told what? He told use your current affairs knowledge. So if you look at Karnataka and if you see in Kukke Subramanya, there is something, there is a practice which is called as Madesnana. Madesnana, I don't know how to spell, okay. This is practiced by a community called as Malay Kudiyas, a tribal community. What is that practice? They will roll over the eaten banana leaves of Brahmins. It's their belief system is that will good or it will cure of them their skin disease, something like that. Now there is a dilemma here. The educated members of the society, they say this is a violation of human right. It's below human dignity. But the community says that this is our cultural right. So this is a challenge with human rights movements in India face. Should we interfere in cultural customs or not? Second one, when the police kill Naxalites or kill people, we say it is human rights violation. But what about when Naxalites kill policemen? Does that come under the ambit of human rights? Or the other issue is temple entry, allowing women into temples. That is a conflict between individual rights and cultural rights. Or abortion laws, whether woman has right over her body or even the fetus, it has a right or not. Death sentence. So he told, I wrote all this. And that is why he ended up getting what? 154 in paper 1. With how much? 3 months of reading. That's why I told you, it's not about how many hours you read, how much time you prepared, that does not matter. It matters is that how well you have understood this exam. See, you might be good in JRF or what is it, masters is there, MA, IGNO, what do you call that exams, NET, that is different. You might be a PhD holder also from JNU. We have many students, we have one student who is from JNU, political science masters. But he has not got more than 210 in all the 4 mains what he has written. So there is a specific method where UPSC will ask question, where a specific method you have to write. So like science students and arts, no, it does not matter. It's about how you read. So for example, what if you are an art student, you have already read in a method. Problem is more because it is very difficult to unlearn and relearn. It is much easier to learn something new from UPSC point of view. That is what you see, that is what happens. Otherwise art students should have been more successful, right, in this exam. But who are more successful? Mainly the engineering, medical science students, etc. So it's not related to whether you have studied or not, it more about how you study and are you preparing according to the demand of the exam. And that's what I told here also, PYQs are very much important. If you have solved like 150 PYQs before the exam important, 60% is there only. Rest 40% is what you do is any recent current issues. And in political science, it is also easy to guess issues. Like now, the election commission issue is going on. 100% you can expect a question on election commission. Russia-Ukraine crisis is happening. You can predict it. It's no big deal that you have to go and search. Or yesterday, if you see that Saudi Arabia or UAE, I think Saudi, right? Saudi became a dialogue partner of SCO. Yeah. This you can analyze and say that this is an indication of declining American influence in West Asia, increasing Chinese influence, because China was able to also negotiate between Saudi and Iran. Now what people will think, sir, this is current affairs. See, there is no separate current affairs for political science. Whatever current affairs you read for your general studies, the same current affairs, you have to know how to use it. Sir, no sir, I won't read only current affairs. Then how you will pass UPSC? See, okay. I'm not trying to push you to take politics. I'll never do that. It's your wish, it's your mercy. See, I think Pradeep sir also made a good point that the intention is that even if you don't praise us, it's fine. But tomorrow somebody should not curse and go. He told and now you can see gave a hath. That we don't want. That's your decision, you take. But the point I'm telling is that now if you tell, okay, fine, I am not so much endowed to reading dynamic. Then how will you write answers in GS2, GS3, GS1? They are dynamic. Who told it is static? GS are more dynamic than optional papers. Optional papers will keep repeating questions. GS is dynamic. So that doesn't mean that you are not going to read IR, you are not going to read the recent political development. You have to read for current affairs. The same current affairs what you apply in political science. There is no separate current affairs for political science. That is one popular myth which has stuck in with students, that every day something new will happening, I have to update. Nobody is going to ask you Modi's visit to Cyprus. No. They might ask you large scale policy changes, like after Prime Minister Modi's election, India's policies towards Israel has changed. You know, we have gone to an era where we can say India has dehyphenated the policy. And when we look at dehyphenation, we also need to understand why this has happened. Is it because we have a new government, or is it the political conditions are changing in West Asia? It's more analytical. So they are only going to ask drastic changes which has happened, not day-to-day current affairs. So this is the topic behind what is it, human rights dilemma, and what is human rights, as I told in other parts also. Then you have concept of justice. Same thing, liberal concept of justice, Marxist concept of justice, feminist concept of justice. Then there is a separate scholar called as John Rawls, but John Rawls is also a liberal scholar. We call him as a social liberal. He has more ambits of socialism and liberalism. Plato's concept of justice, Aristotle's idea of justice. Okay. So when we read justice, it's a simple word. In Kannada or Hindi, in Hindi we say nyaya, in Kannada we say nyaya. Now the idea is that, okay, how do we identify justice? Which idea of justice is correct? And for that, best example is Amartya Sen. Amartya Sen says that justice is a very complex thing which cannot be easily decided. And he gives an example of, I think you have heard, 3 kids. Let us think 3 kids are there, A, B and C. And there is only one flute. Only one flute. This flute can be only given to one person. Only one person. You cannot make another flute. You cannot tell, sir, alternative days they will share. No. Can be only given to one person. There is no other flute. All 3 want. A is saying that I want the flute because I made it. I cut the wood, I made it. It's my creation. B says that though he has made the flute, that fellow does not know how to play the flute. I know how to play the flute. So if you give it to me, it will be of some use. C says that this fellow knows how to play the flute. This fellow knows how to make the flute. I don't have any talent. I have nothing in life. That is, the flute is the only thing which I can hang on to. The question is that now you have to give justice. You are the judge. Whom will the flute go to? Whom will the flute go to? Now, some people might tell, sir, let's give the flute to A. He made it. Tomorrow you make notes, you fail prelims. Now other person will tell, I have passed prelims, you give me the notes, I will read and write. Sir, it is injustice, sir, I made the notes, I have worked hard. Another person says, sir, even though he has made the notes, what is the use? It is of no use. Give it off to that person, at least, it will be useful for them. So third person is saying, sir, that fellow at least has money to buy the notes, he has the idea to make the notes, I don't have money, I don't have idea. So if you give some notes, so Amartya Sen says that there is no one idea of justice. Each one of them are correct in their own perspective. So that is what we say. The first person, if you tell you are giving the flute, we say you are a capitalist. Capitalist believes in ownership of property. If you are telling give it to B, we say you are a utilitarian, maximum good or maximum benefit out of it. If you say C, you are a socialist, to the least well off, what you have to. The question came about why, because when you read John Rawls gave a theory of justice, a procedural aspect. He told there is a procedure through which we can arrive at justice. Amartya Sen questioned him. So Amartya Sen told justice is not a procedure, justice is action oriented. And Amartya Sen makes use of Hindu philosophy to explain. So he takes Mahabharata or Bhagavad Gita, and you can say that he takes about Krishna and Arjuna. And when we say in Kannada or in Hindi, we say Nyaya and Niti. They are not one and the same. We use in correlate Nyaya and Niti. We don't say Nyaya and Niti is one and the same. Niti is more of a procedure. Nyaya is more about protecting the dharma. So Arjuna when the Kurukshetra war will begin, Arjuna will be in a dilemma. What is the dilemma? That he does not want to fight the Kauravas. So he'll ask Krishna, I can't do it because it is against Niti. Why? Because my own guru who taught me how to fight is on the opposite. My brothers are there. So at that time Krishna will tell, here you cannot follow Niti. You have to break the Niti because you have a larger thing to protect. That is Dharma. So he gives an Indian example of how justice cannot be just a procedure, it can be also action oriented. You cannot just follow rules and say this is justice. Justice is not end about following rules. Similar to what we can say, due process of law, procedure established by law. Procedure, you will follow the rules. No, sometimes you have to go beyond the rules to see at the value. So this is what we will be exploring in this chapter, how the idea of justice has changed from Plato's time to the present times. And you will read about Ronald Dworkin's, John Rawls, Amartya Sen. You will understand their ideas. Then moving on to idea of justice, then you will go on to idea of equality. I think already in polity you would have read same thing, Marxist concept of equality, liberal concept of equality, feminist concept of equality, and difference between equality and equity. So if you look at this diagram, okay, this is scenario A, this is scenario B. So when we look at scenario A, we can say this is equality, right? Scenario B, we call it as equity. So you need to understand the difference between equality and equity. The previous chapter I told justice, when we discuss justice we will be also discussing equality. How do we bring the distribution? Now here you can see there is absence of discrimination. No, we are not discriminating at anybody because everybody we have given equal height stool. Here there is discrimination. This fellow is being favored more than this fellow, than this fellow. But if you look at both scenarios and if you tell which is according to the, which satisfy the principle of justice, you will always say it is the second one. But there are neoliberals, when you read different, neoliberals will tell no, this is only correct. Again you have to understand their ideas. Neoliberal says that who told him to be born short? It's not our problem. It is natural inequality. We as a society cannot do anything about it, and they believe that we should not waste energy over helping the weaker section. That is, there is a famous saying, let the drunkard be in the gutter, that is where he deserves. That is why the state does not bring any kind of affirmative action. But here they believe that no, this is not, even though it is natural, we as a society, where we say all for one, one for all. So here we believe that as a society will only grow when we are able to uplift the weaker section. At least you have to ensure everybody is at the same starting point. You cannot have a race saying that one is at a different starting point, another is at a different point, and then you will tell we will decide on merit. For example, if you tell there is one person with no legs, one person with one leg, one person with two legs, and you tell all of them will run a running race, and who will win the race? Of course the person with two legs will win the race. So this is the idea behind reservations, why the state has brought reservations. So you will be studying what is equality, what is equity, what is the relation between equality and liberty, does bringing equality violate liberty, or promoting liberty we should drop equality, or there is a view that both can be balanced. When we balance both in the right proportion, then is when we say justice is provided. So we look at this idea. And the last part of part A will be democracy. So here we will be studying about different concepts of democracy. Okay, so we will go into how democracy emerged. Democracy is not something new. Democracy has existed since ages. If you look at ancient India, we had democratic institution in Vedic period, Sabha, Vidata, Samiti, Buddhist political ideas, the idea of deliberative democracy, arriving at decisions through discussions. Okay, so we look at democracy. That what are the different types? Representative democracy, participatory democracy, deliberative democracy. Now again here I told, see this is not something new. Plato has spoken about democracy, J.S. Mill has spoken about democracy, Locke has spoken about democracy, Karl Marx has spoken about democracy. So this is nothing but again summarizing all their views in a systematic way. So you have representative model of democracy, participatory model of democracy, then you have deliberative model of democracy, and we will deal with each one of them. What is the benefit and what is the weakness in each model. And then we will also see this same, again I told, democracy chapter. You take in your part B, Indian constitution, you will read about the institutions. Then again you take paper 2 part A, the last chapter in that global concerns, democracy at global level. What is democracy at global level? There is a view that we have to encourage more number of democratic countries everywhere. Democracy is the best form of government. But the question mark is it ethical to forcefully introduce democracy in some societies? So for example, you can take Americans try to introduce democracy in Afghanistan, we know what happened. Iraq, they tried to do, what happened. And there is some view, say that democracy and development don't go hand in hand. You have this former Singapore PM, Lee Kuan Yew, okay. So he told why India is not developed. His reasoning is that because there is democracy in India. And he will tell look at Singapore and look at China. So we have actually developed more than India, because all these three countries were in the similar socio-economic parameters in 1970s. He says no, why India is not developed? Because of democracy. India and democracy has slowed down its development. He says that democracy is harmful for development. You need soft authoritarianism. But his idea is challenged by our very own scholar Amartya Sen. He says that it's wrong. What you are telling is a wrong hypothesis. Your study is only wrong. Show empirical evidence. So he'll tell I can give you 100 empirical evidence where there is authoritarianism but there is no development. What about North Korea? Going by his logic, then why North Korea is not developed? And he'll tell in Africa there is a country called as Rwanda, which is democratic and it has one of the highest growth rate in the world. So Amartya Sen says that it's wrong to say democracy and development don't go hand in hand. He'll tell in fact democracy is essential for development. He'll tell development has to be democratized. Means what you develop should reach to every sections. That is what he said. Development has to be democratized. And he's written a book called as Bengal Famine. In this book he says that in any part of the world where there is genuine democracy, famine has never occurred. Why? Because people, the public opinion, the media will force the government to act. Most of the famines happened in colonial countries where people didn't have any kind of power. So this is the debate. What will be? So the whole political science as a subject, we read in form of dialectics. Dialectics means dialogues. Dialogues means what? For every argument, there is a counter argument. And once this argument and counter argument clash, the outcoming argument will always better and improvement over the previous ideas. So this will keep happening till when we arrive at a situation where there is no more contradiction. This you will read, you will understand when we read Plato. Okay, because Plato uses dialectics in that regard. So this holistically is your part A. Now for these parts, what is the democracy, etc. Class notes again will be provided, but along with class notes, you have to read O.P. Kauba, no other book. There are some people who will refer that Andrew Haywood ideologies is there. Okay, no, just stick to class notes and stick to O.P. Kauba, nothing else. Same thing, you have to write PYQs, all the PYQs on these areas. So, have any doubt with respect to part A? Any doubt with respect to this part? Any doubts you have here? See, NCRTs we say are the most useful, undervalued books in that regard. Okay. You can tell like this, sir, what will happen if I don't read NCRT? Nothing is going to happen. That's right. What will happen if I read NCRTs? Again, nothing is going to happen. But you can say that, am I better by reading an NCRT? Yes, your life will be much better if you read NCRT, especially for political science. That yellow color book is there now. What is that? Contemporary Global Politics. If you read that book and if you read question papers, many questions directly has been asked from that book. You read that book. That book has non-aligned movement, Cold War, American hegemony. The same chapters are there in political science syllabus. If you read that much content is more than enough for you to write good answers. Okay, so I would always recommend to read NCRTs. Okay, how do you read NCRTs? See, half of the NCRTs is in form of stories in that regard. The idea is not behind marking those stories and you have to understand the essence of that story. So, for example, if you have read that, I think 7th or 6th NCRT, Democratic Politics, there is one chapter on diversity. So there is a story they give, Samir Ek, Samir Do, they meet at a signal, etc. What is the idea behind that? Though we are a diverse country, it is possible for us to co-live. You know, he's from different state, this fellow is from different state, he's from different religion, this fellow is from different religion, they're from different languages in that regard. So that will improve your understanding. Okay. But saying, sir, I'll only read NCRT, nothing else. Only NCRT you read and go won't be enough. But yeah, NCRT will build your foundation. Many of the examples which are given in NCRT, because I remember in one of the answer, in GS paper also, in political science paper also, they had asked one question on, in GS 1, they had asked something like, linguistic diversity, is it a challenge to countries' unity or something, they had asked. I don't remember the exact question, but the theme question was that, because in India there are multiple languages, is it a challenge to our democracy? So, I had read NCRTs, I don't remember which NCRT, so, but in some NCRT book, polity only, I had read about, they had given the example of India and Pakistan. So, when this linguistic reorganization happened, initially our leaders, let it be SK Dar Commission, JVP committee, they had a notion that recognizing languages as an identity will weaken India's integration. But later Fasal Ali Commission, recommended that you can recognize language, but they did not recognize one language, one state. So what that book said is that because India was able to accommodate different linguistic identities, India went on to become a very strong democracy. Exactly opposite what people thought, that India will disintegrate. It strengthened India's unity in that regard. And you can see the South Indian states, Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, their human development index and their, what you can say, their taxes, what they collect is more in that regard. But if you look at Pakistan, the Bangladesh issue in that regard, because there was enforcement of, one language, one identity in that regard, led to what? Pakistan got divided and Bangladesh went on to become a separate state. So I use that point in my answer. That's what I told. NCRT will give you examples. NCRT will give you the direction to think in that regard. So that is the utility of NCRTs. But yeah, if you say that, no, this I have already read, I mean, I'm from CBSE background, I know all this, I know very well, then not required. But if you are from non-humanities background, you don't have such ideas about humanities, it is always better to read an NCRT. And don't worry about time. Okay, time can be managed in that regard. So in Kannada we say Ati Vega, Titi Vega. Like some people, they'll try to read very quickly and try to finish the series. By the process, they'll lose direction of what exactly, how the preparation needs to happen. Okay, so it's not like a 100 meters sprint race. UPSC is like a 800 meters race. You have to know when to sprint. If you try to run, you get what you can say. You lose your energy by the time you complete. So yeah, I would recommend you read NCRTs. Okay, and how much time it takes to read NCRT? Hardly it will take 3 days or 4 days to complete one NCRT. So definitely NCRT you can read. And okay, regarding the course, as I told now, the course will be, as we told, 4 to 4.5 months. It depends upon holidays in between, some government holidays, etc. But we need 4 months to 4.5. It will vary. And notes, there is no need to write notes in the class. You can take running notes if you want examples. But we will give, for 80% of the syllabus, we will give our notes. Okay, means it will be uploaded on the portal. You just download from the portal, you read it in that regard. So that is handwritten notes and printed notes. So certain notes are handwritten, I have only written. Certain notes are printed in that regard. And apart from that, as I told, maintain a separate book for answer writing practice. So in class, what we will give you as questions regularly to write answers. And for current affairs, if you see that on the Telegram channel only, the PSR Telegram channel only, we are posting important articles, issues, and we also release a magazine for especially for PSR called as News to Notes. So this will mainly cover the current affairs part of it. Means what are the latest developments have happened, book reviews, certain codes. And also there is a section called as Margadarshi, where we are posting answers of our test series toppers. Like Akshat Ayush answer has been posted this month, who got 106. So like Netra Meti answer has been also posted. So whoever have got rank in our test series, we are posting their 1-1 answer in 1-1 monthly magazine. So in class also we will show how they have written the answers, how answer writing should be written in that regard. So this is the part of the plan. Okay, about the course, how it is designed. Second, sir, will you guarantee 300? No. Don't join that I will guarantee 300. Sir, I will. Sir, is it very easy? You tell me. Nothing is easy. I won't tell it's very easy just for sake of admission. Saying that it's very easy. You take off simple. No. Any subject. I am telling not only political science. Any subject you take, you have to put in effort. There is nothing in UPSC called as you will get easily. Right. Something if you get easy, then you know what is the because you have many schemes now. You invest 10 rupees, tomorrow will give you 10 lakh rupees. What will happen? After 2 months that flow is gone. He won't be seen it. There is no magic here. If you have seen Kung Fu Panda movie, it is you who are going to get 300. We will help you to get 300, me and Shashank sir. Okay. We will help you to get 300. But it requires effort from your side also. Okay. So if you have any doubts in what is that, part A, you can ask. Tomorrow we will take up part B and the rest of the syllabus, and we will start with Plato. Any doubts?
What is the IGNO materials?
IGNO is Indira Gandhi National Open University. If you go to website, you will directly get free access to IGNO material. Okay. You don't worry, I will only give IGNO material in the classroom itself, in your Telegram channel. We will post all the IGNO materials which is relevant for the exam. It is Indira Gandhi National Open University. So that is for BA and MA is there. Some materials of MA, some materials of BA are useful. 5 minutes. Any other doubt you have? So tomorrow the class will be at 2:30. 2:30 to 5. 2:30 to 5. Okay. So tomorrow, same here, the same OGP1. But anyway, we will notify both on YouTube as well as the Telegram channel. Any online students have any doubt? How the answer writing will be reviewed? See, for answer writing review, one for online students, Telegram portal will be there. You can upload your answers there. Offline students can show your answers after the class or in between the class, any point of time. Any other doubt for the online students? Offline students, any doubt? Okay, then we'll see you tomorrow. Okay, Shubham Sharma, test series is not included in the course. This is only a teaching course. Test series is not included as part of the course, but we make you write answers in that regard. Okay, my Telegram ID is at Nick PSIR. So you can contact me on Telegram. Okay then, thank you.